So, my husband and I became foster parents about 10 years ago. In order for us to complete our foster care certification, we had to sign a petition basically saying that we would not spank any of the children that came into our home. Most of these kids have been through some type of abuse, neglect, and that is CPS's way of protecting them. And so we abided by that. We got our little boy when he was 7 months, and we adopted him when he was 3. A couple years later, we ended up having twins of our own, and something in our mind shifted when we had our own children, and we used spanking as a discipline. One day I remember taking one of the twins into the bedroom when she was 2, and I was saying to her, "You're going to get a spanking because you just hit your sister, and we do not hit people." And I was sending this 2-year-old 2 very different messages. I was hitting her, but yet telling her that we were not allowed to hit. And it was at that point that I knew that something needed to change in our minds about the way we discipline our children. According to dictionary.com, the meaning of discipline is training to act in accordance with a rule, and punishment is to subject pain, loss, confinement, or even death. And I think a lot of times in our society we get those two things confused. When I think about discipline, I think about training for maybe a marathon, or training for some type of sport event. You practice it and you redo the same thing over and over again. And punishment seems very final. There's no learning there. It's just putting a stop to something. And I think a lot of times as parents, we think that if we just spank them, that they will stop what they're doing. And research has shown that spanking works in the short term, but it doesn't necessarily change their behavior, because you can't always be with your child every second of the day. So the only way spanking really is going to work is if you, every single time they do something wrong, you spank them. And in most cases, parents are not that consistent. And so I started a journey to try to figure out ways to discipline my children without hitting them. And I came across a couple of really great resources. One of those resources is this book called How to Talk So Your Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Your Kids Will Talk. I've read through this, and I'm also actually right now in the process of taking a class. My husband and I are, and there are a couple of different things that they talk about in this book. One of them is dealing with children's feelings. Most kids are acting out because some type of need is not being met in their life. And so a lot of times if we just acknowledge that they're sad or acknowledge that they're frustrated, they just need to be heard and feel that we understand what they're going through. Another area that they talk about in this book is engaging in cooperation, which I think as parents, it's what we all want, is just for our kids to cooperate with what we're saying and do what we're asking them. And another area that they talk about is alternatives to punishment, and a lot of redirecting and basically training them, teaching them through every situation that comes across better ways to handle themselves, better ways to understand their feelings and react. Another book that I am in the process of reading is called Positive Discipline, and this book is really good as well. One of the chapters talks about having just a positive approach. When we spank our kids, it automatically sets a negative tone for our home and for our children. And coming to them in a positive way is so much more helpful than automatically switching your mind to the negative. Another thing that they talk about is the significance of birth order, which I totally believe in. I think that understanding like how each of your children are different within the realms of their birth order will help you understand the way that they act and respond to different types of discipline. Another thing that they talk about is natural and logical consequences. I love this because it takes the pressure off of me as the parent having to always solve their problems for them. We have a rule in our house that if you forget your lunchbox, dinner is at dinner time. I'm not going to just jump up and run to school and always bail them out. And so it gives you a lot of really good resources to helping kids learn natural consequences, because we want them to be able to fail a little bit when they're still in our home. And if they make small mistakes at home and we let them learn from those mistakes, then they're less likely to leave our home and make huge mistakes. So those are some things that I think that all parents should consider. I think it's funny that I've heard many times that there's no, we have children and there's no owner's manuals. And it's true, but I feel like there's a lot of really great resources out there and a lot of really good things that we can put into practice to grow children that are responsible and loving, kind adults. And I think that that's what we all want in life. Thank you.